Good afternoon, everybody. Just a reminder, let's have our cameras on, please, and make sure that you are in the picture. All right, as people are joining here, what I would like to do is start off class as we have in the past with an AP style question from the College Board. So I'm going to wait a little while longer. We still only have 14. And then we'll get going. Also, then we're going to take a look at a primary source, which will give me a chance to put you in groups. And then from there, we're going to be working on themes again today. So hopefully you have your notes from the textbook and then your in-class notes on you as well. Just want to say a word also. Kudos to you. We are almost to obviously the 9-week break here, which will be a quarter of the way through the year, and you are you're making it, and obviously that's pretty important. Okay, so good job. All right, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and we've got 23 participants, and so as people are coming in here, again, make sure your face is on the screen, please, and make sure your camera is turned on. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to share the screen and take a look at this question. All right, so it's a little bit difficult to read, but it's probably the best I can do here. So the question reads, the trend on the graph above is best explained by the expansion in the production of cotton, sugar, tobacco, rice, or coffee. So I'd like you to identify this correct answer while I'm taking attendance, and do that in the chat function, please. All right, just a reminder, folks, put your answer, A, B, C, D, or E, in the chat function to start, as our due now, and I've got about 30 seconds left here to finish taking attendance. So get the answer in when you're ready, please. All right, so I've got attendance taken here, and we're up to 17 responses. Let's see if everybody can at least make a guess here. And the trend on the graph above is best explained by the expansion in the production of. All right, let's go ahead and look through our responses. All right, so all but 6 got it correct. The correct response we were looking for was sugar production. Okay, so based on what we talked about on Tuesday in class, if we remember right, we looked at pictures of sugar production and how much manpower was used and how they had to make it quickly once they crushed the sugar cane. And so that was a reason for the expansion of the slave trade in the Atlantic slave trade from Africa to the Americas. Okay. All right. I want to say a couple words before we move into themes here. And the first thing that I wanted to mention yesterday in your discussion, as I go to modules here and go to our current chapter, I want to say that your primary source work that you did last night was really good. I thought you took a nice look at the different perspectives from documents 1, 2, and 3. And I told you on the APA test that Africa and the continent of Africa is typically on the test, but teachers don't spend a lot of time covering it. So looking at the different perspective of the Ashanti and the Dahomey, which I think your textbook painted a much different picture of them from what the documents did. I think you guys did a good job there. Okay, and I, like I said, I appreciate the responding to your peers too. That was quite helpful, and a handful of you related it to different civilizations like the Aztecs and the Inca. So very good comparison and change in continuity over time too. All right, what we're going to do to start class off with, so to give me time to put you into groups, is I've got a discussion post that says 10-1 in-class discussion post. Okay, and so I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to end up stopping the screen share. And what I'm going to have you do is you're going to, by yourself, read the document below, and then identify the point of view or the sourcing of the document. Okay, it got a little messed up. It didn't look as clean as when I posted it, but this is W.E. Du Bois. You can read the rest about the source and then read what he wrote in his book, The Negro. Okay, then what I want you to do is source it as if we were preparing this document for a DBQ. Okay, what would be the limitation, the non-limitation? Is this written to a particular audience, etc.? Okay, and put your reply underneath in a 10 to 15 word response. Okay, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to stop the share, get you guys into the groups that I have picked already, and then you can follow the rules that I didn't change very much from what we've already done, but you guys can follow the rules right here for Themes Day. And the only thing that I wanted to highlight is that when you get into your group, the oldest person in the group is going to keep track of the notes today. So you guys need to figure out who the oldest is, and then I'll start the 12-minute timer once I start the groups and give you sufficient time to analyze that one document. All right. The only other thing I think I changed was the 5 bullet points to make sure that we keep our information concise and the most important. And the format of your post should look like this. All right. So group theme, group names, 5 bullet points, a comparison, and then a change in continuity over time. And then you remember, right, the groups will follow the 6 themes for the course. Okay. All right. So since we've done this 7 or 8 times, you guys are pretty smooth with it by now. So, all right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share, make the groups, and let you guys go into this document and analyze it for the sourcing. There we go. And go ahead and put your post in the discussion post.
Hey, Mr. Burnett.
Yeah.
I'm having a bunch of problems with my Zoom right now.
Okay. Um,
My camera's not on.
okay. Thanks for explaining that. I appreciate it. When you get into your group, just let them know that you won't be able to turn your camera on, and they'll be able to adjust.
All right. I don't really have like a an invite or anything, so I had to go through the web
I haven't.
browser.
So right now we're working on a discussion post off of. I saw you were in another room. Discussion post 10-1 in class
Oh
discussion.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. If you guys could, on the participants page, um, click on the yes button when you are ready to move on to our breakout rooms. I've got them created and made um, how I wanted to. So use the green participant yes button to let me know when you are done sourcing the W.E.B. Du Bois excerpt. All right, I can see that at least 3 of you have posted. Um, on the discussion page, and so I'm going to wait for a few more. Just a reminder, please click the green yes, you are done button on the participants page when you are finished. Just a reminder, 10 to 15 words will suffice. I see some of us are writing paragraphs here. All right, so it says that I've got 12 responses. That means I should see 12 yeses in the participants function. You guys, we've used this before. Let's find it. Want to make sure that we're communicating. There we go. Job. in looking at your guys' responses, you guys did a great job in identifying that W.E.B. Du Bois, who's a civil rights activist and creator of the NAACP, did write this significantly after the fact. So that was one thing I wanted you to get. Most of you wrote that it was a secondary source. And those numbers were much higher than we talked about previously. All right, so we've got 20 that have responded. I'm going to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms. Remember, let's figure out who's oldest in the breakout room, and they're going to be the note taker here for our themes. And remember, the theme that you are assigned is the breakout room number that you're in. Okay, Mr. Vermillion is randomly going to be in one of these. He's obviously older than all of you, so act as if he's not in there because, again, he's in his 40s, I think. So that would be obviously not in his teens. All right.
Mine hasn't shown up. Yeah, that's a fun one.
Do you have to say adding how geography affects a civilization? You can just delete that.
Yeah, you don't need that. Are you guys doing okay?
Yeah, we're doing good.
Good. Okay, I'm going to let you guys go. Thanks for having your videos on. You look good.
Slaves for weapons and stuff.
Okay.
Who's the oldest in here?
It's me.
Ah, great. You guys doing okay?
Yeah.
All right, cultural development interaction. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, good. Thanks, guys.
We can put like, sorry, there's like a lot of beeping. But, I know in the notes we included like the endless wars from like rival kingdoms. That's a part of.
Yeah, and they
Yeah,
had like access to firearms, so there was like this cycle.
Yeah, like the competition between rival kingdoms led to endless wars. That's in my notes. And then the kingdoms traded slaves for guns.
That's good. Hey, that's exactly what I wanted you guys to pick up on. The governance in this one is harder, I think, than in other chapters, obviously. So that's good. Keep going. And then obviously the kingdoms that came out of and benefited from the slave trade which, because they were so ruthless, was the Asante and the Dahomey, which you read about yesterday too. So you can use the primary sources also. All right, good work. I'm going to another room.
We could always talk about how these, well, hold on. I had something in my notes. Let me find it. We could talk about how the use of existing trade routes help contribute to like new economic system, or maybe that could be our continuity. So how like how this like triangle trade and African trade was like built off of pre-existing trade routes that had been like beginning to form throughout the age of exploration. But that's not quite economic systems. Oh, that's what I was looking at. So new forms of, or like various forms of currency were used, like irons, like brass rings, and like the shells. Hold on, I'll put it in the chat.
You guys seem like you're on the right track. I'm going to leave you alone, okay?
All right.
Any questions?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, awesome.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
My Wi-Fi is cutting out.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I had a comparison written down. I just forget where it was.
Yeah, we should go more in depth about the trade.
Okay.
So wait,
I can do that. That's fine. And maybe about like the Santi.
So like for comparison, like about like paying tribute, like didn't the people who was conquered by the Aztec had to pay tribute to them?
That's good.
Yeah.
You guys doing a good job. Someone else needs our help, okay? My help. Good job.
Hi, we're having some trouble like coming up with.
Technology and innovation.
Yeah.
Well, this is some of the more depressing technology and innovation you're going to experience here. I mean, guns became quickly made and made faster in order to export them out of Europe to influence the slaves for guns cycle and to benefit the kingdoms that were on the coast, such as the Asante and the Dahomey, and in their slave raiding. Also, slave ships became more sophisticated and ways of chaining slaves together to keep them from jumping off the ship. Also, sugar production improved and the way to produce sugar, but it still took a lot of manpower and a lot of people died. And again, that was one of the demands for the labor. I'm trying to think of other things that I would mention.
it didn't really go that specific when it was talking about sugar production.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, there's not a lot. The sad reality of this story is that the European culture essentially tried to just wipe out African culture between hundreds of different tribes. So, I mean, that's the reality of this. That's what I want you guys to get from those documents too. So, I think if you stress that and I think that you guys are on the right track, and then you got to compare and change the country over time. I think is probably more critical for you guys on this one. Have you thought of either one of those yet? Does that help?
Not
Okay. Do you need me? All right. Let's think about a comparison. What could we compare this to? trying to eliminate culture, weaponry. Might we compare this to
The Mongols?
possibly the Mongols? Yep. Although they were more culturally open to allowing other cultures to exist. I think you could say it's a continuity, like it's stayed the same. Like this is exactly how the Europeans acted in the Americas when they first conquered. So the way that they treated the cultures in the Americas was the same as they treated the cultures in the kingdoms in Africa that they witnessed. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. I got to see one more room real quick.
Mr. Burnett, I'm sorry, but like I accidentally when I entered back into the the main room, the all the stuff I was working I was typing on Canvas just went gone. So I don't my group's work isn't there. So it might take me a few seconds to write everything down again. Is that okay?
Yeah, what number were you?
We were
Two?
development of interaction of cultures.
Yeah, you go ahead and get that put on there and follow the format. And I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and we can get started, okay? And we'll just have you go after that.
Okay.
Hey, make sure you have somebody in your group who's ready to share. Okay, you said 90 seconds worth at the most. It doesn't need to be all that long. It's really more about just kind of highlighting the main information. All right, so we're going to go ahead and try to do this in order like we usually do. So we'll start with humans and the environment. Post looks good. Go ahead and talk to us, folks. And those of you who've got your notes out, go ahead and kind of, again, if you already have everything written down, that's good. But this is an easy way to organize it, to go back and study it. All right, take us away. Whoever's going to talk, let's go.
All right, so we didn't actually have time to do the CCOT, so I'm just going to read everything we have up to that. Or not read, present. So we had humans in the environment. We talked about how geography affected how resources were being traded through the slave trade route because of crossing the Atlantic Ocean. We also talked about how slave trade across the Atlantic was very difficult because of the perilous seas that they would have to cross and possibly getting lost and things, and how diseases would spread on a ship because you couldn't move anyone around. It was a really confined space. We also talked about where they were brought. They were brought to the southeast coast of the Americas because that's where the most fertile land was, and that was the easiest accessible place to bring slaves. And how the triangular trade provided resources for all three continents, and Southern Africa wasn't really affected by the slave trade. They didn't really have many people taken. And our comparison was about how when Africa was conquered by a bunch of different countries. It was very similar to how the Mongols would take over large areas at a time and conquer them.
I think next to this one, you could just draw a big triangle and remember triangular trade. That kind of sums it up. You're right. That's good. Okay, good job. Let's go to 2 here, which, Lily, you probably aren't ready yet. So 3 was governance. What do you guys got for us?
So we had governments, and we discussed how land was owned by the state and it really determined the wealth of the people. And then we also talked about the competition between like rival kingdoms and how some kingdoms like the Asante and the Oku benefited from these type of rivalries because they kind of came out as like triumphant. And then we talked about the political centralization due to firearms and how governments would want to capture and enslave African people for guns to make sure that they're the best. And then we also talked about how the slave trade like shifted kind of the balance of power between these governments, and it became kind of unbalanced. And our comparison was like Romans, they took battle captives as slaves, similar to kingdoms in Africa who went into wars to capture slaves. And our CCOT was the demand for sugar increase, and so did the demand for slaves.
It's good. This is the part that people don't like. They only think that the slave trade affected the Americas. They forget about this whole thing about how it totally affected the kingdoms, and like it made false kingdoms in Africa that weren't really there before. And that again would end up destroying the fabric of political unity. And even to this day, it's not the same as it would be had this not happened. So good. All right, economic systems, brings us here.
Yeah, so we overall thought it was pretty self-explanatory with how important the African like trade system became like globally. And also we talked about how various forms of currency were being introduced, like iron bars, brass rings, and shells. And I think a big part of what we were talking about was how luxury goods were a driving force of the triangle trade in return for firearms and slaves. So it was like the triangle trade. And so for our continuity, we were discussing how the need for materials from other places helped to fuel economic expansions and connections. And I think the biggest way that we can connect this is like the need from outside places, like for their want of like Asian goods, and how this can kind of relate to Africa, like the need from like other countries and continents for the need for slaves for labor. And then for our comparison, we were talking about the development of economic systems not only had an economic but also social effects. And the way that we were comparing this between 2 places was how there had already been slavery in other places, and like how slaves had already been trading, but it didn't have the social effect on a community like the Africans that this African slave trade did.
Good. That's good points. Okay, group 5. Go ahead.
Okay, we discussed social interactions and interaction in general, and we also talked about how trading was like a huge part of how different civilizations traded resources with one another. We spoke about how like the Portuguese traded with Africa in exchange for resources they couldn't actually attain in like their own land and continent, and they received stuff like ivory, pepper, and gold. And Africa like prospered from this because they also attained things they couldn't like get in their continent. We also talked about how slavery played a huge part in human interaction, and how race also played a huge part in slavery, how people with darker skin were mainly targeted to be slaves at that time. And we also talked about how slaves had to pay tribute for certain things that the continent like thought was wrong that they may have did. So how they had to pay tribute to that continent they were enslaved to. And then our comparison was how some areas required enslaved dependents pay tribute as similar to the captured people of the Aztecs who also had to pay tribute. So, and then our change in continuity was how labor was extracted from the natives till they were no longer in supply. So basically, natives were slaves first, and then they were replaced by slaves imported from Africa to larger civilizations.
Good. Good comparison and obvious change in continuity. Okay, that works. Let's get back to Lily, group 2. Cultural development and interaction.
Okay, so we did cultural development and interaction, and we said the triangular trade was a big part of interacting with different cultures because it spread like everyone's culture from different continents and countries and stuff. African knowledge of plants and religion was brought to the Americas, which was definitely a spread of culture and interacting between two different countries. African states constantly warred with each other, which we compared to the civil wars happening within Islam, because although the cultures are like kind of similar, they still had like differing like ideas that made them have conflict. And then for our change, we said the population of slaves in South America and the Caribbean greatly increased.
Okay, good. That's an interesting comparison. So between Sunni and Shia Muslims, if you guys remember that. Okay, last but not least would be technology. This one was kind of tough on this one. So go ahead.
For my group, they didn't mention that much in the book and PowerPoint, but we were talking about how they started producing guns more because slaves were being exchanged for them. And then they also improved slave ships so they could have like features that would prevent like accidents from happening so they could trade them. And then sugar production tools were made because that was a new widespread thing and activity they were doing. And then for our continuity, we were talking about how Europeans were like treated consistently, like poorly in Africa and in the Americas. And then also how Europeans were treated just like they were treating the natives and Africans the same.
So the drive for technology and resources created a similar system. Okay, a lot of similar comparisons here between themes that can happen between chapters. If you pay attention to the primary sources though that I had you read, is they were different and they give you different opinions of African states and kingdoms. That's the stuff you really need to remember. I think a lot of you have learned some of this other stuff in middle school before, or in 8th grade when you learned about the colonies and the fight between those who wanted slaves and those who did not want slaves. That probably is something that's fairly fresh with you. Before you guys leave, I just wanted to mention one thing here, and that is for tomorrow. If you guys can see my screen, we're flipping from 2 weeks ago. So the hashtag or the money sign, or the hashtag or whatever it is, pound sign is the inner circle, and the asterisk is the outer circle. Remember, the outer circle needs to have 5 well-developed critical thinking questions, but don't make them impossible hiddles. Don't go into your room together and be like, oh, I'm going to make these, let's make 10 questions that nobody can answer. It's going to be awesome. All right. Take it easy on the rest of the group. Okay. Also, as I stated 2 weeks ago, tell us where you got the question from. And so those of you that are in the inner circle, you're responsible for having your themes, being ready to pull up the themes on the computer, being ready to have your book notes with you, your book, physical textbook if you have one, and your class notes. Okay. So then the discussion will go well and everyone will be happy. Okay. Those of you who are still feeling pressure in discussions, guys, we've been in here like enough times now. It should, I hope you, I know, I'm sure it's a little stressful, but I hope there's some level of enjoyment too, because it's you getting to express your knowledge and your opinion sometimes as well. And it shows me that you guys have learned the material, and hopefully it gives you confidence that you have learned the material too. The other thing is page numbers for next week after fall break, 604 to 624, chapter 18. This is my favorite chapter in the book. And so I'm just gonna warn you. I usually take 2 weeks on that chapter, and it's 5 PowerPoints at least, or 6 PowerPoints. I mean, it's hard for me to get through the Protestant Reformation in a day. So I don't know. It's my job to condense that somehow. We'll see how I do it. But yeah. Okay. I've had a couple people tell me they're going to miss class. If you miss class, make sure you upload 5 critical thinking questions, and that's you won't be in the discussion. That's okay. All right, you guys can leave. You got a couple extra minutes. Thanks for your participation today. You guys did great. If you didn't, some of you didn't post on the Canvas post. Make sure you do that. Okay. All right. Have a good afternoon, folks.